Welcome to the ALX Show, your premier source for DFW real estate data and insights. Let's get to it. Hello, Josh and Patrick, and welcome back to another episode of the ALX Show. Today, we're going to be talking about a new asset class, a new type of real estate investment opportunity that you guys are thinking about. So we're going to be talking about RV parks as investments. And it's something you guys are considering, looking into, doing some due diligence. Tell us about that. What's up with that? RV parks, good, bad, indifferent? Why?
Yeah, like you said, it's new for us. One thing that we always focus on with any investment we do is the people. We typically like to be on the kind of administrative side, the financial side of projects. And then it's really important that we've got great operators. So in this case, we had a couple really, really strong operators bring us the concept. And so that caused us to dig in a little bit and learn about RV parks. And I think what we found is we like them.
Nice.
It's still new. We still got some work to do. But really what we're talking about is going out, finding land, somewhat rural, but not too far away from a major city center, and developing that land into both short-term and long-term stay RV park. It's exactly what it sounds. It's kind of like what you think of as a camping ground, but it's set up for RVs with fenced-in yards, and you have amenities. You've got like a public bathroom, shower. You've got some parks on site. You got pickleball on site.
Nice. That's fun.
All good visibility from major highway. And then people come and stay. And one other reason what I like about it is the management is pretty light. So people come and stay for, short or long term. And it's all managed electronically. You have somebody nearby that can take care of problems, as needed, but not a big management lift, which is really music to our ears.
Yeah.
Multifamily.
I like
Another
that.
big thing we like about it is it's a land play. If you buy the land at the right price and you buy it within the path of progress, then it's really minimal development as far as infrastructure. So you can operate it as an RV park. You can get up and running pretty quickly. You can operate it as an RV park, and then down the road, you'd like to reposition it into single family or something else, then it's not a whole lot of work to do that.
Cool. So these properties are in Texas? You're looking at, like, close to DFW, or where are you trying to shoot?
Yeah, the opportunities that we've seen so far in Texas, the primary one is right outside of DFW. So,
Cool.
as far as I've been able to observe, and this is going to sound really intuitive, I think there's two really beneficial places that you want to be location-wise for an RV park. One is off of an interstate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good stopping point for somebody. And if you're near a big hub, that's a benefit too along the interstate. And the other one is obviously like by places where you can camp. So national parks, state parks, so someone who's going on an extended stay could stay there, that kind of thing. So,
Cool.
That's what kind of where we've zeroed in on so far.
Cool.
And when you talk about home affordability and how that's getting further and further away for a lot of people, and a lot of people, we're also seeing a trend where people like the flexibility where they don't have to be tied down somewhere. So if you're in an RV, it's relatively inexpensive. You can get up and move around. It's cheap to park it and stay for an extended period of time. And these RV parks are starting to pop up around, like I said, major metro areas. So you could work in Dallas, have an RV park, in Greenville. And it's not a terrible commute. It's not necessarily quick either, but people are willing to do it because you've got the freedom to move around when you need to, and it's cheap rent. You got to buy your RV, but otherwise it affords you a lifestyle that's a little bit less expensive, and everybody values their freedom, and there's certainly plenty of that.
Yeah. I see a lot of I don't know, it seems trendy for people my age, especially, that are really trying to like slow down. And so they've got young kids and they're just like hustling right now. And they're just like, I need to get away. I need, and an RV park is a perfect example of trying to do that. So as an investor, thinking about these properties, how do you see the return dynamics relative to other kinds of real estate assets, or especially as part of a larger portfolio mixture?
Yeah, I think an investment into an RV park is going to be pretty similar to what you'd see return wise on a commercial alternative.
Okay.
And you know, it's so much less labor intensive that it's a little bit different of an opportunity, because the development side of it gets you in at a much lower basis than you would otherwise. So it's a lot less capital intensive. So you can, you know, get into a project that's going to generate a similar yield, but with a lot less capital to do it. So that's probably the biggest difference between an office building and an RV park is to develop one's going to, you know, be 1/100th of the cost.
I think a difference too is you're not going to see the appreciation pop like you would on a value add multifamily or office or other commercial space. You know, it's just it's more once you've developed it and it's operating, you're really buying into a cash flow with probably a kind of a limited upside for the next group. So it's a safer, I think, investment in that way, but certainly not the same, you know, potential upside that you would in like a big, like I said, other commercial property, especially like multifamily.
You said before that it's like a quick to cash flow kind of opportunity, and then on the other end, you've got a lot of different exit opportunities. And if anything else, you have the land, but you could always repurpose it, like you kind of mentioned. So it seems like it's a really, I don't know if the word is like dynamic or like flexible kind of investment. That's really, really cool.
Well, it's interesting because your development is like you're putting in roads and parking lot, like, and that's it. And then you've got like septic, utilities, that kind of thing, and some lighted areas and all that.
Fencing.
And fencing.
That's a new thing now. Like the newer parks, because everybody wants to bring their dog. So the newer parks, you've actually got a nice fence outlining your space, so you can sit out, have some privacy. You let your dog run around.
Huh, interesting. Do you guys RV? Are you anybody RVers? No,
but I mean, gosh, so now, obviously digging into this, I mean,
Yeah.
and we all knew this, but like I hadn't really put numbers into my head mentally. But there's an entire ecosystem out there in the RV world. I mean,
Okay, tell me about that.
well, there's entire trade organizations that are focused on how do we grow the RV lifestyle, and people that do it. I mean, a lot of people will rent one and maybe go on a vacation and do it. But there's tons of people who that's their life full time, and they cruise the country and they stop somewhere for a month or two and then go on to the next spot. And so one of the things that's neat about these parks is different than like a hotel, which is just, unless you're in an extended stay, but just nightly, rental rates. You've got a longer term option. So there's not necessarily the same risk of vacancy because you're just trying to fill something every single night. You've got an option where you can pay a daily rate at an RV park, but they've also got monthly options. And so you can lock in a tenant, so to speak, for a longer term than you would think when you first hear RV park. And you're thinking like short term, have to manage a lot and all that. But, you could fill 70, 80% of your available space with people who are going to be there for at least a month, if not 2 or 3 or 4.
Interesting.
Nice way to do it.
Is this something that you've seen other investors get into, either institutionally or private, small independent? Like, what's the trend in this kind of category? Because I don't know much about it.
I don't think we've seen that yet. It's not real scalable, I think, at this point, right? If you were to get some institutional investors interested, you'd probably need several of these going at once. I mean, it's not real capital intensive to get going. So if you've got these guys that have a ton of money and they're looking at placing in different projects, RV parks One, because it is kind of coming on. It's not new, but over the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, it's becoming more and more popular. But they're looking at, well, we've got all this money that we've got to place. We really don't want, to do $2 million or, $2.5 million in order to buy and develop one of these parks is not really an efficient use of their resources or time.
Yeah.
So, and the returns, like I said, we're not looking at, returns are solid, but we're not looking at returns that are going to be better than to go at a great positioned multifamily or commercial asset that will allow them to put a lot more of the resources in one place, have the upside that those projects will bring, and really the scalability of being able to repeat that, right? Because you do have to kind of get out of your everyday analysis to look like we did, to look, okay, RV parks, this is interesting, let's learn about it. So I think for now it's more going to be small independent groups that go after these, even individuals that maybe own some land or have a friend or family member that does, and they're just thinking of something a way that they can cash flow on it.
This is somewhat related, but a few months ago, I went to a wedding, and they recommended, the wedding party recommended that folks stay in this, it was like 2 or 3 acres, and it had a bunch of tiny homes and some like little yurts, like little glamping kind of situations on them. And so we went there, and I'd never been to one of these before. And we drove in, and there was like, I want to say like 8 to 10 tiny homes. And so there's very, very small ones. And then there's like 2-story ones that were like, 1,000 square feet or 1,500 square feet or something. And I just thought it was so fascinating that you could have, let's say 2 acres or 3 acres and put this really beautiful property on. And it's basically like you've got a hotel or, something like that just on property. And I can't imagine it's super capital intensive to do something like that, or takes forever to do that. I mean, they were very, very small homes, and it was really nice. I loved it.
It's the same concept we were saying. Like, I mean, it's obviously different, but tiny homes, you see like the deliverable homes, like they're not necessarily tiny, but they're super basic and simple, prefab, and they come and they deliver them on site.
Yeah.
You can also, I mean, it's been around forever, trailers, right? But you can also buy the RVs if you wanted to as an investment and rent it out and just park it and rent it out if you want to do that too. Then now you've got additional assets that you've got to manage, which is you got to determine if you want to do that or not, if the return's worth it. But I think it is a really it's a minimal mindset. It's people kind of getting away, wanting a break, maybe from like the hustle of what they're used to. It's affordable. And it allows people, I think what a lot of people are looking for is just that freedom and flexibility. And, a big thing we'll see kind of how that changes now that there's a lot of people, back to the office and things like that. But I still think there's going to be a steady demand for that alternative for people that want a cheaper, more flexible way of living. And like you said, like when you're building these, everything you said, you keep in mind, you want it to be a beautiful space. Mm-hmm. You want it to incorporate the nature around you. You want to have a little pond that you can fish out of. You want to have some walking trails. You want it to really be peaceful and just a fun, like nice little getaway kind of resort style feel to it.
Mm-hmm. Josh mentioned the affordability of it, and it just triggered my mind. So if you think about like the downside risks to what your underlying cash flow generation of an RV park, which would be the people leasing space from you. So the downside risk is, a difficult situation for the U.S. consumer that peels back their spending or the things that they can do.
Yeah,
and
right.
What it seems attractive to me about RV parks is that it's way different than a resort or an airline or like more discretionary things that are the first things to get cut from a budget when things get tight. If you're concerned about or uncertain about your income over the next year and you want to go on a vacation, you're probably going to cut the trip to Europe. And so like American Airlines and whatever resort company, like those are going to be impacted by that change in behavior. But the RV that you can rent and go pay $700 for a month to go stay, and have, limitless area of where you can go when you do that, like that's probably going to be something that can remain in people's budgets. And so I don't think there's a huge change in like leasing, so to speak, based on consumer power or how they're feeling.
I laugh first because you said fly to Europe, because I'm flying to Europe on Tuesday, and I'm counting all the bills and the planning and all that. And I'm like, okay, there is a budget
if
option.
you had just
which would
rented
be
an RV.
going to, yeah, I was about to say, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I like where you're going with that, where it's like, this actually is the budget option. So if you're thinking about kind of like a downturn or changes in people's spending patterns, this actually is the better option for, any kind of more dismal times. So it's something to really have in your portfolio because it kind of can balance out some of those other risks that you might have. That's interesting.
You said that a lot better than that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, in all investments, like especially alternative stuff, real estate, I think you want to, we all know, you want to be diversified, right? So put some in apartments, put some potentially in retail or development. Or we would always say single family, like there's a lot of different ways to do that. But diversify in the different types. And then, some that way, some will hit when others don't, but typically real estate stays pretty steady. I know we're coming out of a difficult time, obviously, we're all aware of that, but over the long run, it should be, steadily moving in the right direction. So, like this RV park idea is not something that we'd say, hey, RV parks, that's it for us. We're going all in. It's just, we had, this is a potential opportunity, something that, might be worth pursuing. And then like at the beginning, when I said, and we mean it, it's for us, it's all about who we're working with. I mean, the concept's got to work. Like the performance got to work. The underwriting has to make sense. There's got to be a market for it. We've got to be able to go out and kind of visualize it, but also we've got to see the real the data, and it's got to tell the right story.
That's right. Yeah.
But we don't even. But the very first and most important thing to us is who are we working with. So in this case, like I said, we got two guys, got a ton of respect for, that brought the concept to us, and their vision is they don't want to just do one of these. They want to do 5 or 10 of these and then package them up. And then that becomes a pretty appealing exit. But in all investments, I think really what I'm getting at is it's about the people. It's about the people. The concept needs to make sense. It needs to be feasible. But then you need to be in the right people that are going to get it done well. And then when things do, get rocky, which oftentimes they will, are they going to stick it out? Or are they going to do what they need to make it right? They're going to be committed, competent, and caring. That's right. And these guys check those boxes. So when the people that you meet are going to potentially do business with do check those boxes, then we're willing to dig in, even though it's something like RVs that we don't have a ton of experience with, but we do have a lot of experience on, well, how can we set this deal up? Right. We set the deal up well, then do we have the operators to make it happen? And overall, as a concept, is it a good one?
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool that, a big benefit of investing in real estate is that it does diversify a portfolio with a pretty stable, kind of asset class. And what you're talking about is diversifying that diversification even more so that you're finding different ways to either de-risk or find, better like cash flow opportunities even within the real estate mix, which I think is really, really cool. I'm curious what your go, no-go decision criteria is on something like this. Like as you guys are kind of analyzing this and projecting things out and having conversations with these great people that you trust and working through that kind of, putting the deal together, what are some things that you're looking at or maybe worried about, hopeful for, what any kind of trigger points that's like, okay, I think this is actually a really great opportunity if we can figure this, part out. Anything like that?
I think the biggest one is what Josh has already talked about is location.
Are we looking for Do we want something that's going to be management intensive on our side? So what I mean by that is it going to be years of facilitating, whether on the capital side or the asset management side before we start to really see any return? Or is it something that can be relatively short on the front end as far as getting it set up and then handing it off to a great operator to let it run and let it cash flow? Because if you're starting with just a piece of dirt and you're trying to build a 100-unit apartment, you're going to have a good year of planning and strategy and getting approval, and that's a lot of work for everybody. And then you're going to have another 12 to 18 months of construction, depending on the complexity of the job, and before you really start to see anything come back on those projects. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into that from the administrative and the capital side, just getting money to and fro, and especially when set up on a draw system. So there's a lot of work that goes into that before you really get to see any significant return. So I think there's a place for that. It just depends on where you are as a business or where you are as an investor. But like with us, with everything we got going on with the private credit fund and the apartment portfolio that we currently manage, and also looking at these projects, we've got to decide, what do we have the capacity to do, and what are some things that don't turn into like 2 or 3 year intensive jobs, and we can actually just set it up and then pass it off. So that's a big thing for us right now, just where we are as a business. The RV park allows us to do that. Like you kind of just you set it up. They're still going to have to manage a little bit of a draw system, but it's not nearly as much as if you were going to build a building. You're putting in the roads and the utilities and things like that, or doesn't require a whole lot of financial management on that side. So we like that part of it. I think the other thing is, we need to make sure we represent investors in all these deals. So we need to make sure that the current cash flow is attractive and appealing. I mean, relative to the risk. Yeah. So I don't know, something like this. Yeah, go ahead.
That's it. The biggest financial piece is occupancy. I mean, I don't think that you want this to only work at 90% occupied or higher.
Yeah.
It's not like a traditional.
You want more market
housing.
Yeah.
You've got to have a lot more, because you're going to have a lot of seasonality in traffic, and you can have change in behavior that impacts people or whatever. So I want something like this to work. If you're 100% occupied, that's great, and like enjoy the excess cash that's going to spin off. But I also want it to work at 50% occupancy. I want it to be able to perform, to account for those fluctuations, which is a really different vacancy factor than you'd have on any other residential type of investment.
So what I'm hearing is you guys are on the hunt for land, essentially, land that you can develop into an RV park. Is that one of the needs that maybe some of these guys that you're working with are working on, or is that the thing that you would want to communicate to investors right now, or in your newsletter? Please sign up for the newsletter, alxrealestate.com. But if what would you want to communicate to folks out there is like, hey, if you've got a great piece of property, or if you've got connections in the RV world and wanted to build a park or buy parks, 10 parks, is that anything like that? Like, what is the need here?
Yeah. We're always looking for great land opportunities, and it doesn't have to be just for RV parks, right? You just figure out the highest and best use for that land.
Yeah.
And a lot of it too depends on where it is. If it's within city limits, then you're going to have to get something approved by the city. So you have to talk with them and figure out what they're interested in doing with it, or what they'll allow. But it could be RV parks, it could be storage, it could be multifamily, it could be a commercial. I mean, it could be anything, right? We've got so many talented people within our network that we always refer to them as operators, because we know our skill set is more on the administrative side, and we need to work with great operators. So we've got great operators that could take down just about any project.
Cool.
Land is always valuable, right? Land is the most valuable thing in real estate. I mean, you figure out how to cash flow property on something that's really well located. That's it, right? That's That's the best you can do. So, or find something that you just happen the timing's right and it appreciates like crazy because you got out in front of, where things were moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, anybody that's got land or is just curious, maybe they're not ready to do something, but just wants to know what are the possibilities. We're always open to exploring that.
Cool. Yeah, if anybody listening is wanting to hear what an investment opportunity in RV parks might look like, please reach out to the team. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, and like I said, we're just jumping into this. But we will get to the bottom of it. We'll have it fully
of course.
loaded up,
Yeah.
right? We'll have our pro forma, and we'll have all we're putting that together now. But we thought it was an interesting topic, not only for RVs, but just looking at investments, real estate investments in general.
Cool.
And being open-minded, being willing to maybe go outside of what you're used to. That works for us because we know that where our core competency is, and that can translate into different project types. And that's what we enjoy. We like learning about new things and being able to the freedom, the flexibility, speaking of RV parks, to diversify and potentially invest alongside great operators in new and exciting things.
Yeah, that's cool. What I love about you guys is that creativity. It's just like, hey, God gave us these skills. He's giving us these opportunities. Let's figure out what we can do with them, and turn something into like a really positive, creative, interesting, even if it's unique, even if it's like maybe not the traditional kind of way, even though you got plenty of traditional investments as well, but just being really open. And I think that's so cool and unique about you guys.
Well, I will say just on a personal note to close out here, in the last several years, we were very single-minded in multifamily for 5 years. And multifamily is a great asset class, maybe the best, in real estate, arguably. But what we learned is when rates shot up and transactions turned off, we were not well diversified, right? So that stung, and it was a positive in that we jumped in and we learned a lot about property management. Became much better asset managers, which allows us to get out and be more comfortable in doing different types of projects because we feel like we had to sharpen our skills just on management in general. But the most important lesson that we learned, and that God willing we will never forget, is you need to be very well diversified until you get to a certain size, right? If you get to a certain size in multiple markets, there's an argument that you can really be focused, and it depends on your skill set too. But for our skill set and what we enjoy doing, we found that it was very important to, one, be surrounded by high character, high talent operators, and then two, be flexible, look at all different types of asset classes, be open-minded, be really good on the underwriting, know how to work a capital stack, and then continue to network on the investor side. So we know if we do our job and we focus on those things, then we know God will bring the people and the plans, and we can merge together, and we'll be open about it. RV parks, yeah, we'll take a look.
I love it.
Apartments, of course, we know those. But yeah, in land, we love land. I mean, land is such a valuable asset. They're not making, God's not making more of it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
You've heard that before.
Yep.
But so yeah, we're always open to land and the possibilities that come with it.
Cool. I love that. Well, keep us posted on how this I guess, I don't know, the due diligence process, if you call it, just the exploration, the curiosity, how it's going, and I'm excited to see what people might think of it.
Well, we'll throw some numbers out there too. Next time we as we get further kind of down the road here, we'll put some, so people can really have some numbers to think about and compare with some of the other investments.
Yeah, so by the time this episode releases, it might be a week or two, and so by that time, if you got some more numbers, let's throw it in the newsletter. So
people need to hear the numbers because that's really where the rubber meets the road. So
yeah, cool.
We'll have our pro forma done, and we can really kind of get into the details in the next time we meet.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm excited to hear that, and I guess we'll see you next time on the ALX Show. Thanks, guys. We'll see you then.
All right. See ya.